Syndrome, a psychotic little child who grew up a genius idiot. How's that for an oxymoron? In my last two videos on Syndrome, I have delved into his antics, the secrets behind his amazing plan, his parents, and I've successfully solved his whole life story in the best grand theory on my whole channel. Watch those two videos before this one, because today we close this trilogy of theories with the solution to one question. Why would people like Mirage and the henchmen actually work for Syndrome? Well, they all could just be paid hefty money, but the henchmen, they all act identically, they all seem so one-sided and bland, and they don't really care that Syndrome is as sociopathic as he is. So, what's going on here? Hello. I'm the Theorizer, and I really like The Incredibles, so in honor of the sequel, I'm solving the first movie one final time. For those who fail to recollect my past videos, I'll briefly recap. Syndrome is the son of two supers, one of which is likely Psychwave, a superhero whose profile you can find in the side features of this movie's bonus disc. Syndrome, also known by his real name, Buddy Pine, possibly killed both of his super parents, and then he usurped their superhero base on Nomanison Island, where he proceeded to slaughter all of the other supers on their team, using his incredible intellect spawned from his mother's psychic abilities. A hero known as Gazerbeam was amongst one of the supers who Syndrome lured back to the island, and we learn on the bonus disc that Gazerbeam used to be on the same superhero team who owned the island, until he was kicked out by the other members. Upon Gazerbeam's death, he used his laser to carve the supercomputer's password on the wall. Syndrome had no reason to change the password after his takeover, since not only did the code word match his plans and life story, but it also wasn't something anyone would have had access to anyways. So Gazerbeam remembered the password from when he was on the team, and he carved it. But at the end of my second video, I highlighted something very interesting. Clearly Mirage, his assistant, is a worker for the US government. She was sent to Nomanison Island because Syndrome was working with the US government, though they didn't know of his secret agenda. Some even believe Mirage was a spy, which I fully agree with, as the government was likely suspicious of Syndrome and they would have sent her in. But I've also been driven to believe that she has something seriously wrong with her. In part 2, I talked about how Syndrome's planes and gadgets, they all share the same system of artificial intelligence. Syndrome used his superb intelligence to create it all, and once he dominated his new base, he spread his AI through all of his machines, vehicles, robots, all across the island. These artificial intelligences have personalities, and they learn as they go. Some of them even comprehend some level of emotion, as seen in how the Omnidroid can oftentimes hold a bit of a grudge after failing to kill a target. Mirage is very distinctly intriguing. Her name is something to note. Clearly, it's a codename, Mirage. As most of you should know, a mirage is an illusion, something not real. And while she does act like a bit of a chameleon, shifting her personality rapidly depending on her environment, the name Mirage, I feel, means something deeper, almost like she herself is not real. Mirage almost sounds like a name given to a product of beta testing, almost like how the Nintendo Wii was codenamed Revolution, or the GameCube was codenamed Dolphin. Mirage sounds like a name, but not a given one, or not even really a spy name. And while it could allude to her chameleon nature with the shifting personality, that doesn't explain why she has that name to begin with, because the only people who really notice this personality are we, watching the movie, and it wouldn't make sense for someone in this movie's universe to name her that. You get what I mean? Also, when she approaches Mr. Incredible for the very first time, her introduction is something shocking when you realize what it can mean. She says, "According to the government, neither of us exists." Whoa. Now, that can mean she's a spy who's had her citizenship files deleted, sort of like Mr. Incredible has, but that seems too obvious and doesn't really apply to her. Also, she was talking about how Mr. Incredible had his citizen files deleted, so it's unlikely that she'd refer to herself in the same way by using a complex metaphor. Which leaves only one remaining possibility, that she's not real in the sense of not human. Almost like a cyborg, a very advanced one that contains an extremely advanced AI created by Syndrome, which works alongside the entire AI that runs the island. But she seems to seriously struggle when Mr. Incredible chokes her, implying there's no way she's made of metal, and she seems to have emotion, leading me to believe that either her AI has advanced too far, or she may have something even deeper going on. The concept of her being a spy is top-notch and excellent, but here's what I think. I think Syndrome has controlled her to some extent with the psychic powers inherited from his mother. His super intellect, of course, as I've said, was accompanied by psychic powers which he used to kill his mother and the rest of her hero team inconspicuously, but with swift efficiency. My question about being robotic or hypnotized not only applies to Mirage, but to Syndrome's whole entire team of almost robotic henchmen, each one identical to the last. I've always believed that they were some version of an AI he created, hence their superhuman reflexes and ability to fly their hover ships so accurately, but a commenter suggested a secondary idea, which I'd already believed for Mirage, that Syndrome is instilling fear into them all with his powers and intellect, and is using his psychic abilities to amplify it to a stage at which they robotically follow his every command. Think about it. They all obey literally every command, they are incredibly one-dimensional, and they celebrate at the death of tons of humans by drinking, presumably champagne, while having a party in an RV. But they do still have a party, and they do have emotions, meaning that they can't be simple robots. Conclusion? They've been psychically manipulated into convincing themselves that what they're doing is morally correct. It's adding yet another layer of freaky onto this already scary situation. Mirage has been manipulated, but we know she too isn't a robot because she defies Syndrome in the end. Now, this could just be the AI becoming too smart for its own good, but it's far more likely that Syndrome has been distracted by Mirage's so-called love towards him, weakening his hypnosis on her. So, in summary, Syndrome, also known as Buddy Pine, is the child of Psychwave and, most likely, Universal Man. Parents who were rarely around because they were doing hero work. Buddy Pine looked up to Mr. Incredible, a hero who saved the city constantly. When he was turned down by Mr. Incredible repeatedly, Buddy gave up. His powers had already started to develop, his intellect and minor psychic powers coming from his mother, and his zero-point energy beams inherited from his matter-shifting father. His parents, or more specifically his mother, had been fighting in a civil war with her own team of heroes, in which Gazerbeam was ejected from their team, and they accepted a new person in. Their secret island base, Nomadison Island, was of course also partially owned by the NSA, also known as the National Supers Agency, a government agency that aimed to organize and aid superheroes. After Buddy's revenge plan was initiated, his rage and motivation surpassed that of any love he had for his always absent parents. He then killed his father with his very first Omni-Droid. Second on his list was his mother, who just so happened to be killed by Buddy Pine right after Universal Man. Killing her, that's what opened up a whole new world of opportunities. As he advanced his artificially intelligent machines, he found all of Psychwave's files regarding the NSA and the plans for supers. With utter ease, Syndrome found Nomadison Island, and as we see on the kill list, he instantly killed every single member on Psychwave's team in order, following his infiltration of their island. He found their computer, typed in the password Psychwave had in her files, and used the NSA's information to track down and hunt all of the other superheroes. Using the millions of dollars he gained by selling his machines to the US government, he built up Nomadison Island into his base, now fully able to utilize his zero-point energy inherited from his father and the super-intellectual psychic powers inherited from his mother. He then brought in Mirage, likely a recommendation by the US government, a woman who could help Syndrome with his inventions, when in actuality, she's secretly a spy who will feed information back to the government. But Syndrome flipped the situation on the government when he psychically controlled her, causing all information she fed back to the government to be lies. This fully explains why the government never made a move on Nomadison Island. Mirage was hypnotized into telling them that everything was fine, and Syndrome wasn't killing anyone. Buddy Pine chose not to change the computer's password, as not only did it personally resonate with him, but it also wasn't a problem. Nobody could surpass him. He, like all villains, was cocky. He then began killing more heroes, one of which was Gazerbeam, who died in a cave beneath the island, but Gazerbeam knew things, because as the bonus disc tells us, he was in fact a part of the team. Until, remember, he was kicked out in the Civil War. He used the last of his powers to engrave what he remembered to be the supercomputer's password into the walls, and then he died. As Buddy Pine's plan continued, we finally got to see his defeat in the movie, after he'd manipulated and psychically entranced hundreds of henchmen and advanced his AI to an unimaginable point. He was still defeated by the fact that his small love for Mirage distracted him. Damn you, side chicks! What a brilliant plan. What a brilliant theory of mine. Wow. You know, her incredibly thin body might finally be explained. She's one of the only Pixar characters with freakishly abnormal bodily proportions. Must be a robot. Or, as we know, maybe not. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer. I bet I'll have a ton of Incredibles 2 theories coming down the pipeline. Get hyped.